Well, we're probably about ready to get started.
Go ahead.
All right.
Okay. So, not everybody in here has been mushroom hunting before, so just to kind of get everybody up to speed, how I like to start is basically by talking about how I like to go into the woods safely.
First, this is Patrick Bales, Mushroom Man of Piaton.
Hello?
I'm Melora, Mrs. Mushroom. And thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you. So, when you're thinking about going into the woods, you're thinking about going and checking out to see if you can find some mushrooms and have a fun time. You want to make sure that if you're going off trail to get into the mushroom zone at all, you want to make sure you're properly prepared. So you want to make sure you're dressed right. You want to make sure you have good long jeans, a shirt that you can tuck in. It's very helpful. And you know, if you are wearing socks, you could tuck your cuffs up into your socks as well. And the reason why you might do that is because of ticks. Out in the forest, there are a ton of ticks, and they are disease-carrying little insects. So you want to make sure that you're always protecting yourself against it. Bug spray is also very helpful. Anything that keeps mosquitoes away, like deep woods off, will keep the ticks off of you as well.
Or I always pronounce it incorrectly, but the permethrin treatment that you can spray on your clothes ahead of time if you're comfortable using that. That's also very effective.
Yeah, that's right.
Essential oils. too.
Yes, essential oils, they don't like it. It burns their feet and it irritates them, and they don't like the cling. Yep, absolutely. So you want to make sure you stay safe. You know, a friend of ours, actually over in Iowa, is a mushroom grower, mushroom hunter as well, and got bitten by a tick on one of his mushroom journeys. Ended up getting alpha-gal disease. That's a pretty bad one. If anyone here is a big fan of a hamburger, well, it makes you allergic to meat. So
And all, like dairy, all
yeah,
meat
the
products.
smell of cooking meat, you know, you can't
he
go to
has
the steakhouse anymore.
Anaphylactic reaction when he tried to go to the steakhouse with his family. And it is in Illinois. The Lone Star tick is in Illinois now as well. So it's not just Lyme disease anymore, unfortunately. So it's really important. You know, you don't want to run out into the woods in shorts and
Yeah, definitely.
sandals.
One of those hidden dangers to look out for. But
Yeah.
when we go out there, you know, we also make sure to take a first aid kit, just in case anything could happen. And
You just wouldn't believe how many things. I had to pull a bug out of his eyelid one time. It just flew right into his eye when we were out there. And, you know, stinging nettle, this little rubbing alcohol swabs are so helpful. If that stings you, you just kind of give that a scrub and stop stinging, you know. It's just, you just never know. Someone, you know, someone's gonna trip, usually me. So.
twice now, as I'm walking around, I'm looking down at the ground, and looking for mushrooms all over my field of view, and then pop right in the eye with a twig, you know, right at eye level. So one thing to watch out for is getting stuck in the eye. So eye drops is something we always take.
And a good hat, so that nothing, you know, nothing creepy that falls on your head, you know, comes in direct contact with your head. So.
But when you go out in the forest, the surest way to stay safe, you know, as we're talking about mushrooms, some of them are very toxic. Some of them are very poisonous, and if you eat the wrong ones, they definitely can kill you. So the surest way to be safe is to make sure you don't eat anything you take. That's lesson number one. If you really don't know what you're doing out in the woods, if you don't know what you're doing with the mushrooms, is make sure you don't actually plan to take them home and cook them up. Use them as samples and as learning experiences. For us, when we got started going into the forest, we tried a few times and like had a mushroom or two that we really knew and took samples, brought it back, and used that as a learning experience to figure out, you know, how exactly to go about the process of identifying mushrooms. And it's very useful to take a book with you or some sort of guide. There are some really good books There are some really easy to carry guides that will tell you all about the different mushrooms and what they all look like, little qualities of each one. And then when you get home, even more important is the mushroom identification key.
Which is, our favorite is this one, the mushrooms of the Midwest. It not only has a great front section that teaches you about how to take a spore print and other identification techniques, but then it has a huge identification key where it'll ask you simple questions about the mushroom that you found and then lead you to additional questions, and then that will give you suggestions on what the mushroom is, and it'll take you to photos and a good description. This one was written by professors of mycology and biology here in Illinois, and it's an older, book that was written before AI began writing and publishing books. This year, there have been several instances where people have bought mushroom foraging books on Amazon that were written by AI, even though there is a photo. It looks like it was written by a real person, and they do actually contain false information, and people have been hospitalized because of it. Yeah. So we thought we would bring the two books that we use the most often, and we know that these were written before that was happening, and I've read articles by the authors of both of these books. So if you're looking for really good books that only have the mushrooms that are growing around here in them, so you don't have to sift through a lot of, Pacific Northwest mushrooms or East Coast mushrooms, these are two really good ones. So we'll pass these around if you want to snap a photo, of them. And then these are also some other books from the library here that are also old enough to be definitely not written by AI, because that wasn't happening when they were written. So the Edible Wild Mushrooms of Illinois book is cool because it shows pictures of toxic lookalikes right in the same couple of pages, and it has some yummy recipes in the back as well. So it's a cool little book. I've probably bought that 6 times as gifts for people because it's just such a neat book. So
The mushroom identification key I find particularly interesting. I have to say there's really nothing quite like it. When you get home with, say, 3 or 4 different types of unknown mushrooms, and you've got them in your paper bags, which, by the way, is a very good way to keep the bugs in the mushrooms and not around your house, because they do live in the mushrooms. Paper bags, you open them up and then you start to go through the key, and it'll ask you all kinds of questions like, the simple stuff. Is there a cap and stem? Well, if you look on the underside of it, do you see gills or do you see pores, or what do you see? Is the surface of it, is it smooth? Is it rough? Does it have an oatmeal-like finish? Or,
it's always good to take a photo of the mushroom in situ, before you pick it, because what it's growing on. Hi there, welcome. What the mushroom is growing on and the environment around it is also important in identifying the mushroom. You'll want to know if it's growing out of the dirt, or if it's growing, off of a tree, or if it's possible that it looks like it's growing out of the dirt, but it's actually growing from the root, of a tree. But I think fall mushrooms are a really great place for beginners to start, because in terms of identification, it is much easier to start with the polypore mushrooms. And those are mushrooms that have tiny little pores, little circles on the underside, and not gills. Gilled mushrooms typically have a lot more toxic lookalikes, and it is a little trickier to identify them. Most of the polypore mushrooms that we're going to talk about today that grow in this area this time of year, while they may have lookalikes, none of those lookalikes will kill you or make you super sick. So it's a really safe, good place to start if you haven't mushroom hunted before. The mushrooms like hen of the woods. This is my absolute favorite wild mushroom. It's also called maitake. Some people call it sheep's head. And the scientific name is Grifola frondosa. And it is a polypore mushroom, and it has a few lookalikes, but they are technically considered edible mushrooms as well, even though they're not quite as choice as the hen of the woods. The black staining polypore and the Berkeley's polypore, they're a little tougher and more fibrous, but you can absolutely eat them if you make a mistake. The black staining polypore will differentiate itself from the hen of the woods. If you tear it and let it sit for a little while, it will stain dark, hence the name black staining polypore. So if you're unsure, you can always just break a little piece of the mushroom that you found and let it sit and see if it discolors. But we're going to pass around this photo because, hen of the woods can be so many different shades, from almost white to super dark. It can be thick and chunky, when it's young, or it can kind of spread out into these really pretty petals as it ages. These are all mushrooms, these are all hen of the woods that we have found over the years at Kankakee State Park. So, yes.
Is there a flavor difference in them?
I think that the really dark ones have a stronger flavor, and the darker ones seem to pop when the temperatures are colder. The really super light ones, usually you find those like really early in their season when it's still kind of been warm out. The other, how big the pieces are and the petals and the thickness, that will tend more to do with the age of the mushroom or the amount of moisture that the mushroom has had. Dry ones get kind of a red, almost burnished top when they're really getting kind of crispy.
Almost like a tough bark on the outside, like a tough sort of rind that develops
Pass that around.
in low humidity or when it gets a little bit older. And, I found as we go out hunting for these maitake in different conditions, they really respond to the environmental conditions as well. If they're growing and it's their season, they want to come up. Even if it's dry, they're still going to try to come up a lot of the time if the nights are cool and you get some morning dew. And you might find that they are like hard and round and tight and don't have the same kind of fronds and branches coming off of them as they would in seasons where it's a little bit more rainy, cool evenings, foggy and misty and so on, when they can kind of spread out a little bit more and grow in more optimum conditions. So they'll change according to the conditions around them. You'll find them, we call them potatoes, when they're kind of, when they're nice, but they come up and they're conserving their water, they come up and they look kind of like a tuber a bit that's growing above ground. It's got some little fronds that are developing.
Last night we went around, we wanted to show you some real life examples, so we went around and did a little quick look for some mushrooms, and he found this monster hen that, since it might still have some bugs in it, I'm going to let him pass around.
Okay. It's been thoroughly thumped, but let me tell you,
there's one right there.
You can never actually get all the bugs out of these things. Wild mushrooms, they're definitely not a vegan experience. They always come with extra protein. These are bug hotels. Bug condos, bug skyscrapers.
While he's passing this monster around, I'll talk about how we like to clean them, because wild mushrooms are, they're beautiful, but they are filthy.
This is the maitake. Oh, wow. It's just one way it can come up, and it's got a lot of really tight fronds, as you can see, and it's actually super heavy. If anyone wants to hold it briefly, there's tiny little bugs crawling on
Would they
it.
be just on the ground?
On the ground, yep.
Like right next to a tree. Technically, its mycelium is growing up off of the roots of the tree. This type of mushroom, the hen of the woods, they really prefer oak. I've seen them. I've seen them near other trees, but I honestly can't say that there wasn't an oak there at one time, and it's still feeding off of something underground that I can't see. They really do seem to prefer oak the most.
Here's what the bottom side is. As you can see, it's really a mess under there. Some of them you get lucky, there's some are a lot cleaner than others. This one decided to grab a little bit of everything around it and pull it up inside of it. So if you look, there's bits of tree and branches, there's mud,
It's
you
gonna
know.
be such a pain to clean.
Anthill in
Did you
there.
have to cut it or you pop it out?
Yeah, what I typically do to clean these. well,
Oh,
first
he
of
means
all-
when you
Oh,
harvest
no,
it.
to
Yeah.
pick it, I pop it up generally. Sometimes I get underneath it and I kind of use a hook knife or a mushroom knife, like shaped like a hook with the blade on the inside, which kind of helps dig it out. But this one, I just kind of walked up and lifted with both hands that came up.
Sometimes if they're growing up against the tree, you'll have to cut them off. You know, it depends on the mushroom. But I do like to clean it as much as possible when I'm still in the woods. You know, you take your mushroom knife and you cut off all the yucky bits that you would never cook and put them by another oak tree. It's just gonna help, you know, introduce that to another tree, and possibly you'll get a maitake there another time. Or if you want to introduce them in, you know, if you have property and you want to introduce them, you can always bring those yucky parts home, chop them up in a food processor with some water, and then pour that slurry near a tree that you'd like to, you know, inoculate.
This time of year?
Absolutely. So how I would clean that would be to fill a sink with cool water and then just break it up into a bunch of small pieces. Let it soak for a few minutes. I do not add salt to my water. I don't find that it helps me clean it anymore. And then I just use a sharp paring knife and scrape off any dirt that hasn't come away or any little bits of tree that it has engulfed as it's grown, you know. And then lay them out on paper towels, maybe with a fan, let them dry a little bit, and then I usually just saute them right there that night when we clean them, and then I have them ready for cooking. Or I will take the sauteed maitake and wrap them in little parchment paper packets and then freeze them, and then I can pull them out whenever I want to throw them in with some, you know, frozen peas or add them to an omelet. You know, it's nice to have small bits of them set aside that you can just grab and use whenever you want. I have never tried pressure canning mushrooms. I can't say whether that would wreck the texture and the flavor or not. It might be perfectly fine, but I don't have any experience with that. I've always just frozen them. Yes.
My nephew also puts the salt in the water.
Mm-hmm.
He says it draws the bugs out.
They come out in the water without
regular
salt. They
water?
do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys already-
Yeah. I've never put salt in the water, and the bugs just come. They come, you know, out of it and try to get on top of the little pieces like little rafts, and we just, you know, get rid of
Get
them.
rid of them.
Yeah.
My issue with the salt, you know, I've heard that before myself. The
Yeah.
thing about that is if you put salt in your water, you can actually start to brine
I was gonna
the
say,
mushroom
yeah.
itself, which will change the qualities like texture and
Yeah.
somewhat the flavor as well.
Also, when I'm sauteing them, I like to do most of the sauteing without introducing any salt, because I don't want it to pull
It draws
every
all
bit
the
of moisture out of that mushroom. I want it to stay meaty and juicy and tasty, you know. So I'll salt them after I'm done sauteing them and they've seared and, you know, their own natural moisture has come out a little bit, but they're not like dehydrated, you know. These also do dehydrate really nicely.
They do.
But if you're going to use them after dehydrating them, you do want to make sure that you cook them then, you know, like simmer, you know, reconstitute them in simmering or boiling water. These are not a mushroom that you would want to consume raw. And dehydrating does not equal cooking. So,
Right. I think I heard some talk about cleaning when I was passing this around, and I
Yeah.
just wanted to say my personal favorite way to clean these things. It really is a mess. You got to get in there and break it up. You got to break up all the individual pieces, and just get in there. I think with a knife at a sink and just scrape it with the tip of the knife, because the dirt and the debris and the sticks and everything. Well, you know, that might come off of a potato or a zucchini from your garden, right? But the mushroom, in all its wonderful weirdness, actually absorbs that stuff and tends to grow around it. And you find yourself picking things out of
Yeah.
the flesh of the mushroom. And like when you're scraping off debris, it's because it's like actually a part of it now. Yes?
When you guys are cleaning them like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it absorbs all that stuff and grows around it, do you guys like shave it into small sections or break it into small chunks or?
Usually you can see it, and you know, like it'll be discolored, and you can see if there's a thing that you have to, and I just use the tip of my knife and just
Okay.
kind of go in there like you're getting out a bad spot on a piece of produce and just cut it out that way. But when you're chopping them up to saute them or cook with them, you may end up seeing a stick in there that you missed, and you just do it when you're cutting them
You
up.
need it anyway.
Well, or eat it any way if you like. I get real texture issues from grit in my mushrooms, so I probably go overboard with cleaning them, but, you know, usually I don't send back his pieces to be redone.
Usually.
Once or twice.
But yeah, I typically start with like a big guy like that. I would break off chunks, like hand-sized chunks, you know, and they're kind of palmate. They've got some fingers that kind of come out generally. This is a little tighter, but
Yeah.
you know,
you can
break
just-
off the chunks and then set them in the sink that's about half
Just
full
break
of
pieces
water
off
that's
like that.
comfortable to work in.
And then
There you go.
just, you know, and then you'll just break off pieces that are about this size. And you'll see in there, you can see little spaces where the dirt collects. You can pass that around
Yeah.
if people want to see it closer, but,
Sure. Sure.
you know, you can really, when it's a smaller piece, you can really see all that. And just a little sharp knife. I learned that you were supposed to use a brush, and that just really took a long time. I found that like just scraping it away with a knife was so much faster. Another, you know, favorite this time of year is chicken of the woods,
Wood-based mushrooms.
which is probably one of the easiest to identify because of its bright yellow and orange color. It does have a mushroom that is a similar color that grows this time of year that is toxic, but it has gills. So if you pick the jack-o'-lantern mushroom and look at the underside, you'll see it has proper stems and gills. You would definitely want to avoid that. Any big bright orange mushroom growing this time of the year is not going to be a good time if you eat it. They're cool, they're fun to look at, they glow in the dark lightly, hence their name jack-o'-lanterns, but you don't want to eat them. But the chicken of the woods is more shelf-like, and it has the little pores underneath, and it will not have any gills under it. These you'll pretty much always see growing actually on a tree or a fallen log. I don't think I've ever seen a chicken of the woods growing off of dirt. Or like a buried root. They like to be growing directly on the wood surface. These are frequently people's favorite wild mushroom. I do think they're very nice, but I am partial to these. And he found one of these to show you as well. Oh, that one. This one is really fun to tear apart the lobes of it and then bread them and fry them and eat them like a chicken tender, or chop up and put in a chicken pot pie. They're also really good. If you find an old one or an older one, they can get a little chalky and dense, but you don't have to leave it. You can make a lovely chicken of the woods mushroom pate with those more elderly chicken of the woods. You'll just saute them and then put them in a food processor with some cream cheese and walnuts and roasted garlic, and it's really delicious, and it makes such a pretty color. So many times mushroom pate is such a cement gray, but this turns like a lovely yellowy salmon color.
It's just nothing like that chicken of the woods. When you're out there in the forest and, you know, you picture yourself walking in the full shade, right? Full shade of the forest. it's kind of gloomy sometimes. And you're looking at the bark, you're looking at the trees, and everything's kind of the same color. And then you come around the corner and you see, wow, chicken of the woods. And it is just like a firework going off in the forest. So pretty. And they get so much bigger than that, too. I mean, you can really see them. They get similar to the size of these guys, in fact, and they tend to grow down a tree that's standing, and they'll just produce bloom and bloom and bloom and just do all these shelves of lovely chicken of the woods that just grows off in these beautiful colors coming out of the wood. And, you know, it's just amazing to think that is inside the wood all the time. It's there right now, it's there on New Year's Day, it's there on the hottest day of the year, and if you were to take that log and grind it to pieces and sift through the pieces, you would never find the mushroom inside, because it's all just living inside of the colonized wood structure of the log. You know, there's a lot going on inside of a log when it falls. You know, and mushrooms generally colonize a space. They say most varieties actually colonize a space of a log, say the average size between 3 to 5 feet of a section of a log. And then other species come in and colonize different portions of the log a lot of the time. So you'll find out in the forest turkey tail mushrooms, and then further down the log, chicken of the woods mushrooms, and further down you'll find lycoperdon, wood-growing puffballs, you know, little marshmallow things that are really actually terrible to collect and eat. They just not very good at all, but they're awfully pretty. When a tree falls in the forest, it's kind of like, you know, if you guys have ever seen those deep sea documentaries when they talk about where the majestic whale at the end of its life, it passes and the whale floats to the bottom and it's the source of all this life at the bottom of the ocean. A tree is exactly like that. When you've got a big tree coming down in a forest, opportunistic fungi and insects can't wait to get into that tree and eat the bark and lay bug eggs, and you know, all these different mushrooms come in, and a succession of mushrooms come in. You'll get primary decomposers that are the ones that arrive first, and they like to enjoy the fresh wood. They get in there and they eat the available sugars. And then you've got the secondary decomposers that come along after that source is exhausted, taking different parts of the wood structure and just eating it all. And then you've got chicken of the woods that comes in, and that's a tertiary decomposer that can take old wood and just, it creates this cubical cracking pattern across it. You can see these cubes appear across the face of the grain of the wood, and you know it's getting attacked by a brown rot fungus like chicken of the woods, and it just crumbles. The face of it just crumbles away and goes into the soil and then just becomes a compost. You know, so it's just one after the other. These mushrooms come in and colonize the tree. You know, so it's an amazing succession.
The Hericium species is another mushroom that you'll see this time of year growing around here. Lion's mane is probably the most famous, well-known one, but here in Illinois we also get the bear's head and comb's tooth. They all look very similar, and they all will be growing right on wood, the same as chicken of the woods. You won't find these growing on the ground, and that is actually one way that you can distinguish them from some of their lookalikes, which is the Romaria fungus. Now it's thicker. It looks a little bit more like coral than pom-poms, you know, and long fronds like the lion's mane. But it's important to know, if you see anything that looks kind of like a lion's mane that's growing on the ground, it's best to avoid it, because several of the Romaria fungus species are mildly toxic. While they won't kill you, they might make you really feel unpleasant for a couple of days. And there's also the crown-tip coral mushrooms, which are edible, but again, there are types of coral mushrooms that are not. So I'm going to pass these two photos around together so you can look at them, you know, side by side to just kind of see the differences. Lion's mane is a really lovely medicinal flavorful species.
You find it in this area, lion's mane?
We have found it.
Absolutely. It's
at-
all over the world, in fact.
Yeah, we found it at Kankakee State Park. We found it downstate in Lincoln, Illinois. And we found it at the state park in Danville.
And it's growing right here, actually.
And he also grows and sells lion's mane kits.
Wow.
I have to be honest, after 5 or 6 years of having lion's mane grown indoors in a clean basement and not having to clean the ones that you find in the woods, I usually leave the lion's mane I find in the woods now and do my nice clean basement lion's mane because they're so frondy, you know. These are one of the more challenging mushrooms to clean that you find growing in the wild. Once in a while, it'll be just hanging off the tree perfectly and it'll be clean and lovely and a pleasure. One time I found one growing inside of a hollow log that was so horrifying. I just think that was the first time I ever left a wild mushroom. Didn't take it. Puffballs are another one that you'll see this time of year, and they pretty much have no toxic lookalikes. If you see something that looks like a white volleyball or a softball or baseball in the woods, that's going to be a puffball. As long as it is completely white all the way through, you can feel safe eating it. If it's brown or gray, or if it's a puffball like this that is starting to turn yellow inside, you definitely want to avoid it because when it starts to get old, it becomes very hard on the stomach and the body can't really digest it. These are the easiest wild mushrooms to clean. They have kind of a skin on them that you can just peel off, and then the inside is beautiful and perfectly clean and easy to cook. The texture is challenging for some people. It's a little bit marshmallowy in texture, but this mushroom can be dehydrated and ground into a powder, and it makes a wonderful gluten-free thickener for gravies and sauces and soups. So it's a fun way to use it if you don't like that texture, you know, if you don't like the feeling of a marshmallow with the flavor of a mushroom. Dehydrating it and powdering it is a great way to still get the flavor because they're actually a very flavorful mushroom and tasty, but they're
Interesting.
Now, I mentioned wood-growing puffballs earlier. That's not what you're looking at.
no, there are photos of them on there.
Yeah, those
as well.
grow in, the big ones grow in the soil, and you'll just find them in the middle of just an open area. And they're actually kind of easy to find because there's nothing else that looks like a big white basketball or cantaloupe that's just lying on the ground.
Sometimes you see some litter like a styrofoam cup and you think, I found a puffball, and you run up there and you're like, oh, it's a cup, you know.
But if you ever get approached with from someone that's got a couple of those in their hands and they're offering to sell them to you, I would say, before you get out your money, have them split it in half and show you the inside. Because if it looks yellowish or looks like pea soup, forget about it. You don't want it. The best thing for those is just to give them a big kick when they're on the ground, spread the spores everywhere.
Yeah, they'll explode into a really fun cloud, and then you'll create hundreds of baby puffballs. So, yes.
Can you take about any mushroom and kind of spread the spores and get them to grow? Or are some of them just not gonna grow in certain areas and conditions?
Well, that's a really good question. The answer is yes, you absolutely can spread those things. Let me give you an example. If I was a ginseng hunter, okay, down in southern Illinois, ginseng hunters have a thing where they always make sure to plant the berries in the ground, you know, right there where you take the root. You want to make sure you pass it on for the next generation to be able to grow. When I pick a mushroom like that maitake, I'm thinking the same thing. I actually stand next to different trees and I'll clean the mushroom off with my knife, and I'm zipping off just dirty bit, dirty bit, dirty bit, dirty bit all over the place. Sometimes I'll take them and throw them, you know, 40 feet away to a group of trees I see. But all of that stuff, all of it is spore-producing surface on the outside. These don't have gills on the underside like a lot of, your cap and gill mushrooms. These have tiny little pores, and they actually release spores from all over the surface, from a surface known as the parenthecum, and it just creates spores everywhere. And you can see it as they get older. You're really looking at this matrix of pores as you look down into this thing. It looks very solid, but there are definitely spore-producing structures in there, and you can see them when it gets even more mature. But when you take that mushroom mass and that source of spore production, and you spread it around in its natural environment, that is exactly what the mushrooms want from us. Mushrooms and mammals go together like peas and carrots. Mammals are there to spread mushroom spores. They really spread best by contact because it's best if they have a couple of spores for biological reasons. They need to start with more than one spore in order to be able to get going. So to have that kind of contact and then placed on a surface by someone that's handled mushrooms, walks around, you're touching the wood and everything, you got them on your clothes. Spreading those spores is exactly what the mushrooms want.
That's why you'll frequently see mushrooms growing along game trails and along walking trails. You don't always have to go way deep into the woods to find them. The mushrooms like, hitching a ride on some deer. They like hitching a ride in your mesh bag when you're out mushroom hunting. I mean, their goal is to produce as much as possible. So you absolutely can. The only condition I would say about that is if you find a mushroom growing in this area, you can absolutely get it to grow as long as it's the conditions that it needs. So like if it was maitake, if you put a bunch of maitake slurry at the base of a silver maple, you're probably not going to get maitake.
Right.
Like these prefer oak. Not every mushroom cares what type of wood it grows on, but the ones that do, you'd want to introduce it, in the conditions that it would need to grow.
Now, before anybody goes all Johnny Mushroom Seed and starts taking mushrooms home and doing this in your yard, I can tell you it's a very good way to spread poison ivy as well, honeysuckle. You can spread Virginia creeper and other types of weeds from the forest because the mushroom gets in and all those dirty bits under there.
Some of them are
grab
seeds.
stuff up from all its surroundings. And those weeds, those invasive, non-guests into our yard, we don't want them. So my advice would be, while you absolutely can propagate those out where they grow in their natural environment, I would avoid bringing them home and throwing your shavings and your rinse water and stuff like that under your trees because you are going to get stuff in your backyard that you've never seen before. Yeah, so I found poison ivy under a blue spruce the other day.
We've never thrown mushroom bits there, though. I still think the birds did that. I don't think that was the mushroom.
I think I had a puffball once that I threw out spores there
Oh.
and puffball bits all around that area. I think that's what it was.
One point I want to mention, since he brought up poison ivy. If you see a mushroom growing and there is active, poison ivy around it, growing in it, growing near it, don't take that mushroom home with you.
Yes.
The mushrooms can absorb the urushiol, and it is not denatured by cooking. So if you cook a mushroom that has that poison ivy oil in it, you won't get rid of it by cooking it, and you could potentially give yourself a systemic, poison ivy reaction, which can be serious.
Definitely.
So consider any mushroom growing near or in or around poison ivy not edible. And that brings me to another point I want to mention. A lot of times this time of year, you'll see mushrooms, hen of the woods especially, growing in places like cemeteries and golf courses. There was a disc golf place that we went to that we saw a whole bunch of them growing. And mushrooms are really good at pulling toxins out of the soil. One of the things that mushrooms are used for is soil remediation. So if the ground is treated with Roundup, weed killer, glyphosate, the mushroom will pull that up into the fruiting body. in an attempt to get it out of the soil. And you will consume that if you eat it. So my rule of thumb is unless I see weeds growing, I'm not going to take the mushroom from there. If it's just beautiful, perfect golf course looking grass, or, you know, like at a cemetery where you know they're trying to treat the weeds, I would also consider that to be a poison mushroom and just not, it's really not worth the risk. Yeah. So it's just.
Heavy metals are the biggest danger with those, definitely. Lead from paint, you know, that kind of thing, you definitely want to watch out.
Yeah.
And then make
As
sure it's
well.
not growing next to any sort of a noxious weed.
Yeah.
And I can
And
tell
treated,
you.
and treated wood as well.
Right,
If
and
you see
treated
it,
wood.
if you see mushrooms growing on picnic tables, railroad ties, any kind of wood that's treated, it can pull that creosote and all of those compounds that are in that treated wood. If you see mushrooms growing, you know, I've even seen photos of mushrooms growing in like apartment buildings and things, you know. It's gonna have all the toxins that are in that treated wood in the mushroom itself.
Oh, yeah. Plywood is full of nasty stuff. You don't
Yeah.
want to eat that in your omelet, definitely.
Speaking of plywood, we have one more mushroom to show you. This mushroom is considered edible. It grows in the area from spring through fall, and it is known as either the dryad saddle or the pheasant back mushroom. Some people enjoy this mushroom, especially when it's really young and tender. To me, it has a real strong plywood aftertaste that I just can't get past, and it's tough old bird, but it is technically edible. So I want to pass it around so you can see it. If you break it, you can. It has an interesting woodsy, slightly cucumbery smell to it. That's not like a normal mushroom smell. So this one would be considered an edible, but not a choice edible. But boy, they're everywhere. So, and it does not have any toxic lookalikes. But it has a bit of a particle board finish.
It's been said to
What about
smell
making-
like a watermelon rind as well, if you get a sniff of that.
Yeah, they say they're
Very
good to pickle.
distinctive.
Picture out of it?
What's that?
They say they're good to pickle.
I haven't tried that.
I've
Yeah,
heard they're good in
I
various
don't know
forms.
how medicinal they are.
Oh.
There isn't a lot of studies or research that I've seen about them being particularly medicinal. You could totally tincture them, but other than the normal immune boost you get from any mushroom, I don't know that you'd get any like specific health benefits, or maybe we just don't know what they are yet. You know, they haven't all been studied as well as lion's mane and reishi and stuff.
If you turn on the Discovery Channel, though, one thing I have noticed about this particular species of mushroom, if you get a survivalist TV show and they're talking about what you can forage out there, it seems like they almost always bring up a dryad saddle mushroom. And they'll go on about it like it is this amazing find. But boy, I've yet to take a decent bite of one of those mushrooms.
Maybe if I was,
They're
maybe
really
if I was
terrible.
lost in the woods and like super hungry, I would think that was a really tasty mushroom. Yes.
Are those spores on the bottom?
Yes, those are pores. It's another polypore. And
So these are spores.
these are pores.
Spores.
The spores would be the like powdery substance that would fall out of those
That's what I
holes.
thought.
Oh, I see.
It's got a bunch.
It's got a bunch of them.
Right. Yeah, each one of those has its own little spore factory in there.
That's why wild mushrooms
That's
are
its own
not
fact.
vegan.
What'd you say?
I said each one of those little pits in there has its own spore-producing factory. It just makes spores and then shoots them out of those little pores on the underside.
Oh, so the spores are on the inside of the.
That's right. Yep. And as it gets bigger, you can really see them. But on a dryad saddle, if you flip it, you know, you can really see that kind of pore structure. And if you turn it, it's really interesting because you can see as the light changes, as you turn it, you can look all the way down into the channels and you can see a depth there that, you know, is not really apparent as you just walk up to it. But there's a lot of structure going on inside of that. Those get a lot bigger, actually. They're really impressive flushes of mushrooms out in the wild. I mean, big, beautiful things. But They just don't taste that great. So they're better to take photos of, I think. And the older they are, the worse they are too. They just, look, we had a very mature one once when we were new mushroom hunters, brought that home and cooked it up, and it really was just like chewing on plywood. It's like some sort of acrid taste in there, like, oh. And you couldn't get the taste out of your mouth either, honestly. So I can't recommend it.
What's that?
A really old dryad salad. Remember that really old one we brought home and cooked up? It was just, ooh, that was hard living.
It's good to know about survival food. You
Yes,
just don't,
yes.
you know, it's good to just store it in the vault in case, but that doesn't mean you have to bring it home when you find it, you know.
Yes, you have a question?
Yeah.
Now, where'd you find this one?
For
Same place,
the
Kankakee
past,
State
like,
Park. We
25
just did a little
years,
looking for the
I've,
class
hunted
last night,
morels
so
in
we
my
have some.
parents' backyard.
Last night?
Because my dad
I
grew
was
up
out
hunting
there.
morels, like primarily in Indiana, where his family was from.
Yeah,
Now,
they can be like.
I don't know if you could tell me the reason why some years we won't find any morels whatsoever. Some years you might find a handful, some years you'll find like a bag worth, and I've had a few years where I've gotten 2 bags worth of morels. But every year is different, and I know like for the last 2 years I haven't found any.
Fairy tale.
But the year prior to that, I found a whole bunch, enough to like kind of share.
Yeah.
So is there a reason why some years you find tons and some years there's none at all?
Yeah, the weather has a lot to do with it. Available nutrients in the area might have something to do with it as well. If a particular tree becomes exhausted as a source of nutrition for the yellow morel, which is usually the more common one here. They are endomycorrhizal. They're connected with the roots of the trees. So as one tree starts to fade out, and say a dead tree starts to lose its nutrients and the stuff that the morel likes, it might travel onto a different root system underground or travel by spores, to a nearby area. And just depending on the available resources and the surrounding weather, that's really what controls it. If you end up having a dry spring, say last year when we had that cold, dry spring, and it was just all Canadian wood fire smoke, and the smoke was everywhere. I didn't actually get out hunting, but I can't imagine it would have been a very good morel year given that it was so crispy dry, because it really needs that kind of humidity in the air and the soil humidity as well, the soil moisture to support the organism. If it's got that rain, if it's got that available moisture, that is the resource it really needs to get going, because once it has the rain and it has the optimum conditions like we have around here in the spring, those misty nights and those rainy days, it'll pop right up if it's got the right trees around it. But in a super dry spring, you probably end up having a better year the next year if they don't fruit, because they kind of hang on to their resources and fruit, opportunistically. And if they can't find a really good, spot to fruit during that season, they might not choose to fruit, certain patches, just based on their availability. It's as well, the morels, they do it as a survival mechanism. They come up as a survival mechanism, and perhaps more so than even some of the other mushrooms. They come up when they're threatened or their resources start dwindling, actually. So sometimes when they're harassed, it's a little bit like when they're growing grapes for wine. They say the hardest working grapes, the most stressed out ones, make the wine. And sometimes when morels are stressed out, they tend to produce bountifully.
Which is why you see them after people will do like controlled burns in areas, you'll get those burn morels that pop up, because not only do they like some of the compounds in the ash, it's like a stressful thing that's happened. So it triggers the underground mycelium, like, oh, we better reproduce. This might not be a safe space for us. We may not get to stay here, and it will fruit the mushroom.
Some of the burn morels, some of them are a specific species that literally does wait until there's a forest fire type condition to activate the spores and the hyphae that are underground and then get them going. And that availability of all that unlocked carbon in the form of the black woody burn bits and the ash is what really gets them going, and they respond to that. Others around here, like the yellow morel, is not a burn morel necessarily, but it might be stressed and come back the following year, based on the fact that it's got all these available resources, but is unlikely to come up directly after a burn, our yellow morel. So that's seems like more of a western species type thing.
And that is a spring mushroom. You won't
Yes.
find morels in the fall around here. I know we're getting kind of close to 7, so I just want to make sure if anyone has any questions. I mean, we're happy to stay and answer questions as long as you'd like, and we do have some mushroom products and mushroom art available for sale if you'd like to come up and look. But does anyone have any other questions about fall mushroom hunting? Yes.
What about mulberry trees? Do you ever find any around there?
Not much,
No.
honestly.
Not much.
There's some wild ones growing in our.
Oh, us too. All over the yard.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
The controlled burn, will some mushrooms maybe come? They didn't.
I mean,
yet, but
I will say, oyster mushrooms can grow on any type of wood. They'll grow on plastic. They set them out in rafts to clean up oil spills. I mean, oyster mushrooms will eat almost anything. So you could, I think oyster mushrooms would probably be the only thing that you would find possibly growing on them. And we don't, I have not found a ton of oyster mushrooms growing wild around our area. I expect that we will get more and more in the next few years. There is a yellow oyster mushroom. There's some lore about whether it, was introduced here through export or if it was a mushroom farm in the upper Midwest that had a fire and all the spores got released. But there's a lot of different stories about why yellow oysters seem to be just exploding all over the Midwest. But you're finding them more and more, and they can pop up in the spring, through the summer, into the fall, correct? So I think that we will probably get more yellow oysters growing, around here in the next few years, but we haven't really seen them much.
are they tasty?
They are, yeah, they taste
very
just like regular oyster mushrooms, which are they're a choice edible for sure.
So I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff we brought.
Does anyone have any other questions about mushroom hunting or how to cook them or store them or anything?
So you can freeze them
Absolutely.
before you cook them or blanch
Um,
them or anything?
I like to saute them or roast them before I freeze them. You could
Okay.
totally blanch them as well, that would be fine. They don't freeze raw very well.
Okay.
It does something to their structure and they're not very nice when they get thawed.
Good.
Kind of like freezing an apple. You
Yeah.
take it out, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you don't want to bite into it so much because the texture changes. The cells kind of burst and you really lose that crunchiness. And it's the same thing with a mushroom. If you put it in there and you take it back out and let it thaw, you get a little of that liquid ooze coming off of it, and it's just not going to be a nice product anymore. It's going to look like kind of yucky produce.
Better cook it first.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely cook it first. But if you find a huge one like that, you can just take your big clean pieces, rub them in a little, whatever your favorite cooking oil or tallow or ghee or whatever you like to cook with, and just pop them in and roast them for 25 minutes in a 400-degree oven, and they'll just get nice and crispy and tasty and fully cooked, and then you can just freeze those and pull them out, throw them into, whatever application you want, or, re-saute them and put them on a stave for.
Usually a few minutes, like 10, 15 at 400 or,
Oh, I do about 25.
oh,
Yeah.
25.
Mhm.
Me too.
Yes.
Do we have anything that grows in this area that tastes similar to truffle at all?
No, not in Illinois yet. They are successfully cultivating truffles in, is it Michigan? now, or?
Michigan, they got them in Washington State,
Yeah.
Oregon,
Yeah.
and California. Yeah, it's new within the past
Yeah.
15 years or so.
Yeah.
Is that why you're starting to see so much more truffle products coming on the
Yep.
shelf?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
And
The
the
cost is coming down.
The black truffle, the black American truffles are not the most flavorful truffle, but the white ones are just amazing. I mean, they're absolutely delicious. We ordered some from out west, and I've had some that were the Midwestern truffles, and they're great. They're really great, but they haven't been successfully cultivated in Illinois yet.
Okay.
That's a shame.
But that doesn't mean they won't be someday, you know. I mean, I think if it can grow in Michigan, it can probably grow here, you know. Maybe not southern Illinois, but up here and even more north in Illinois, I think there's very good possibility we could have successful cultivated truffles. So.
But a lot of people don't realize how, easy cultivating mushrooms can actually be. Mushrooms grow on logs out in the wild. And if you wait around a log long enough, you're gonna see mushrooms come up, because that's just how the logs decompose. I mean, they all get hit by the fungi, and they all eventually get eaten and crumble down. Well, that same fungi can actually be isolated, and you can put it into dowel pins that can be inserted into logs that you have in your backyard, and you can grow mushrooms in your backyard from these plugs. So all you really need is a drill and a hammer. So 5/16 bit drill, drill an inch deep, and then tap plugs into place. These are chicken of the woods plugs. As you can see, they have kind of the same color of mycelium as
Yeah, they're kind
as
of
the mushroom there.
Interesting.
No, would that be good to grow in like your basement? Like if you have an unfinished basement?
You don't want to grow logs in your basement, because you'll end up getting, you don't get rain down there, you have to hydrate, then you end up bringing the bugs inside. And if they're inside, there's no natural controls for them, so they'll just go nuts.
But indoors,
Would the
the
squirrels?
indoor
do that?
kits
If you have an
are
oak tree
great.
and you try to put it on an
Yeah.
oak tree?
They'll eat shiitake, but a lot of others they actually don't touch. Squirrels have kind of a funny instinct regarding cap and gill mushrooms. They will recognize some, and it triggers an instinct to pick the mushroom, and then they'll take it and they'll put it in a sunny area on top of a log or something off the ground. And the idea is, they think that the squirrel is leaving this there because after a mushroom is picked, if it gets some exposure to sunlight, it will develop a strong source of vitamin D. And it'll just do that over the next couple of hours as it's sitting in a patch of sunlight after it's been picked. Only after it's been picked, and only if it's sitting in the sunlight. And they think that the squirrels actually do this so they can develop their own source of vitamin D, instinctively, and then consume the mushroom. Vitamin D being one of the more rare vitamins that you find out there.
Do you wax after you put them plugs in?
It's optional. I like to wax, but what I really like to do is get some green wood sealant that's actually liquid at room temperature, and then I just use a paintbrush and I just put that on. So I've done the hot wax method, and it's useful. It can keep everything, keep the moisture in and everything out. But the paint on green wood sealant stuff that's just wax based, that's liquid at room temperature, is way more convenient. So I keep a jug of that.
And where do you get that? Menards?
Online.
Oh.
Yeah, I
And
just
it's
get it online.
non-toxic, there's no chemical.
No. None of this has any chemical. The green wood sealant has some emulsion in it to keep it liquid at room temperature, but then that evaporates off. Yep. So these plugs, these are $15 a piece. I've got lion's mane, reishi mushroom, there's chicken of the woods, and shiitake today. And then I've also got lion's mane grow kits that I brought, and these can produce lion's mane mushrooms just sitting on your counter just like this. They actually grow up on the inside of the bag. You can see mushrooms starting to form up on the top there.
Yeah.
So once they fill up, you can just kind of open up the bag
And
pull it
no
out.
cleaning.
Yeah, no cleaning. Pull them out and then you chop them up and fry them up.
Okay, yeah.
Lion's Mane has been in a lot of articles lately. They're doing studies on it, finding more and more really cool health benefits.
You
Absolutely.
just grow it right on your
It
countertop.
tastes good too.
So are we?
Yeah, it does. Yes.
You can buy those online. Is that safe? Are most of those safe to buy?
The
or-
mushroom kits?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably make sure that you get them from, you know, a company here in the USA. I've gotten some strange dried mushrooms that I've ordered that have come from China. I wouldn't.
Scary.
Yeah, I would stick to domestic kits, you know, and read the reviews, you know, anywhere that if you're gonna be shopping online for mushroom kits, the best place you're gonna get a really good sense of the success rate of the kits, but also how nice they are, is to read the reviews.
Question.
Yeah.
When do you pick those?
Um,
When do you
The
know
ones
when
in
to
the
pick
bag?
them? Yeah.
Basically, when they fill up, about to where the white patch on the bag is, that's when I like to just cut the top open and then just reach in, pull it out, fold this, and then just put a clip on it. And then
Okay.
it grows again 2 more times. And then the mushroom, you just trim off the woody bit on the bottom, and you can just chop it up in a cutting board,
Yeah.
right into the frying pan.
Okay.
And you don't want it to grow through the filter patch,
Right.
so.
Yeah, it's easy to do. That's pretty much the entire instructions, but there's actually a document of instructions that tells you all about the life cycle of it and what to recognize the different stages and things. If you scan the QR code on there.
And then we have tinctures that we've made from various functional mushrooms. We have one that has a blend of all 5 of them, and we've got reishi, lion's mane, chaga, turkey tail, and cordyceps. They all have different health benefits, and you know, you're welcome to come up and we can chat about them if you're interested. The reishi and the lion's mane tinctures are from his homegrown mushrooms, and the others are from, the cordyceps are also a cultivated mushroom, and the turkey tail and chaga are wild harvested, but they are from the United States. So. Yeah.
Is there a difference between the ones that are found in the wild and the cultivated ones?
I don't find much difference in the flavor or the texture of them at all. Now, we have not grown maitake at home, but I have purchased cultivated maitake and tried it. And, you know, it's hard to tell if it's less flavorful because of how long ago it was picked and packaged and brought to me. You know, I've been nagging him to grow maitake for a few years because I'm really interested to see if when you grow it at home and freshly pick it, just like in your garden, you know, your tomato's gonna taste amazingly better than the grocery store ones. And all of the cultivated mushrooms that we've grown, either indoors or outdoors, I mean, they have as much flavor as the ones that we pick from the woods. And I think it really just has more to do with picking it and eating it right away. You know, it's like when you grow cilantro at home and it practically like punches you in the mouth with cilantro flavor, and then you get it at the store and you're like, what is this? It's any flavor at all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The one exception to that, I think, would be the chicken of the woods if you're growing it in the indoors method at home. This is kind of a weird one. People don't generally cultivate this one indoors at home. It does better on logs. Because, and I've done this, I've kind of experienced it myself. When you grow it, it tends to grow out of the little white filter patch that's on the back end of the bag, fills up the inside and then grows out. It's about the only way to go. And then it brings this smell with it that you never smell in the wild. But it's like the
It's a little
cross
funky.
between a stinky foot and some sort of exotic cheese. Wow, it is undescribable. I mean, it's only if you grow them indoors.
And it
Outdoors, you never get a whiff of that.
And it looked kind of monster-y.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It kind of,
yeah.
This one's kind of pretty, you know. It's kind
Yeah.
of even.
Yeah, definitely go for the plugs.
Yeah,
The chicken of the
yeah.
woods. Yeah. You don't even sell the kits of those anymore.
No.
Because they're creepy. Yeah.
To go for Halloween.
I would say you could probably grow any mushroom you want outdoors, but they don't all like to be grown in a bag, you know, but lion's mane and oyster, they love it, they don't care, they'll eat the bag if you leave it there long enough, you know.
Yeah, they will. I actually use only biodegradable plastic in my bags, so eventually they would eat it.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
And feel free to come up and shop if you like. Thanks for coming.
So I haven't dead long.
How long has it been dead?
Long time.
Okay, you want more of a freshly down one, because it won't have any food.
I do have, there's a tree that came down this summer.
Okay, that would
Can we just
work.
take a piece of it?
Absolutely, as long as it's a branch, like, you know, like leg or upper arm thick, you know, about at
Oh,
least.
no, these would be.
Oh,
better.
yeah, that would be fine, it's just
Which
you
is
don't,
the best?
well, what do you want it for
You know what
eating?
type
Yeah.
of tree it is?
It wasn't, no.
It wasn't, oh, you
We
can
have-
pick anything to
We've
grow.
got, we're in an oak savanna, so that's why I wanted to see.
Yeah,
So this should be. Which one is?
shiitake loves oak.
Shiitake is
Yeah.
wonderful for oak.
A lion's mane bag.
Oh, this is the, CO2.
That's the chicken and the
And
sweater.
how much is the sweater?
The sweater is 35.
But you have to have a dead tree for these?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or cut a branch off, you know,
cut a branch?
Mary,
and, yeah.
Then just leave it outside?
Mary, do you want
You
to
can,
get the
as soon as you cut the branch
chicken
down,
in the
you can
wood,
inoculate
the
it like
chicken
that.
in the.
The
Do you wanna
fresher,
get the
more recently, you
shiitake, cause you're
remove
gonna
it from
help
the
me
tree
with
or
this.
it.
Oh, I am,
The shiitake or the chicken in the,
the chicken in the woods is this.
And they'll come back.
yeah, which
Isn't
one do
it?
you wanna get?
I don't know, what is,
Yeah, because the mushrooms will keep
You clean them the same way and
until it
everything.
just.
This doesn't have to be, oh, yeah.
you know, you clean them the same way.
How thick does it have to be?
So can you ask them about that waxing? Remember the wax?
Yeah, generally
Weren't
if
they
they-
saying?
Oh, no, I gotta ask you how to do
Yeah,
it.
so,
Well,
yeah.
see, all you do is scan it.
You know what, you can do this shit.
I also sell all this
Any-
stuff on my
pick any
website
one.
as well.
Look at all the
Tinctures, mushroom
I don't have
clubs,
any
mushroom
Well, he's
kits.
from
It's
Pietro.
Mushroom Man of
Yeah, he's
Pietro.
right here.
Robert's
That's the
got
name of the
a,
business.
she says that
But no shipping.
we don't want a
You guys
real
have
dead
card.
one.
No,
We
I
ran out of
don't
those
need
cards.
Mushroom Man of
But
Pietro.
Robert's
Right.
got a
Okay.
shitload of wood there, and I'll just ask him if he's got
We don't have a
cameras.
store. No, it's a micro farm.
I'll ask him.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
We also
okay,
have,
gotta
we
check
have
it
our
out.
tinctures
And so you do
and
nothing,
country gardens and
you
beecher.
don't even have,
And we do some
when
like
you,
farmers
when you
markets
do
and
these,
stuff.
you put them into the tree, you wax them, you don't have to water them or
It's
anything.
got,
Oh, it's got the direction, I wanna see this guy walking around here. I just wanna look at this.
It wouldn't last as long as that thick, would it?
I wouldn't think so, no, you wanna have.
You want it to be
one
how
mass. Generally about like that, at least.
Or like that?
Yeah.
Pardon? All right, I always